Hello. Welcome to Barney Logan's podcast. Today we're going to talk to Wayne Kusy. I'm traveling on a toothpick ship. It was made by Wayne Kusy. We're going to talk to him now. I'll pick up the conversation in progress. So the Titanic was your first boat, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was I built some boats when I was a kid, but the Titanic was my first major one. That was the first official,
You
boat
mean
that was modeled after something.
The first toothpick one. What you did as kids was plastic models and stuff, right?
No, I actually built two or three toothpick models when I was a kid. I built it when I was in sixth grade. That was my first toothpick model of a clipper ship. Yeah. Yeah, and it took for at least for the Cutty, it took at least 30 people just to help navigate those sails. Pull the sails, furl them. Turn those big masts so that they're pointing in a certain direction. That would help steer the ship in a certain direction. And then when the winds are kind of blowing against you, you have to furl them up real fast so it wouldn't knock you off course. It was a project moving those things around.
What I remember about it is it had the copper hull. That's copper.
Yeah.
And it was, back then, it was a race to get things from where they got them from to a port so they could sell them. So It was as fast as you can go. And from what I understand, the Cutty Sark was the fastest. It broke a world record or something like that. But it was at the end of the era of ships, of sailing ships, because steamships had started to take over. So the Cutty Sark was the ultimate sailing ship, speed. But it was at the end of the time of it. Times change. But it's a beautiful ship.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. It was it was part of the Indian tea trade. It was a tea clipper, and basically what it was, they went to India, picked up some tea, and then brought it back to England, and. So there was a company called the Dutch East India Trade Company. I think that's the company that commissioned the building of the ship, and they just used it to ship tea back and forth. And the race that you're talking about, I forgot the name of the ship it raced against, but they weren't serious races. They were just wager to see who got back to London faster. But it wasn't anything serious. But one of them was pretty badly damaged during a storm, I read. And so naturally the Cutty Sark won by default, I guess. But yes, the Cutty Sark, I saw the Cutty Sark when I was in London a few times. It's right along the Thames River, and it's in a place called Grenwick, right near the Royal Maritime Museum. It's right outside of it.
Well, let's get back to the Titanic.
Sure. Sure, yeah.
That was your first ship. I remember a little backstory here. Wayne and I were roommates. We've known each other a long time. And didn't you build the Titanic in the apartment we had in Wrigleyville?
No, I didn't build it there. I brought it there. Yeah, I brought it there.
You had already built it. Okay, you brought it there.
Yeah. It was freshly done. Yeah. So I just remembered the whole story. So I just moved in. The problem wasn't bringing it into the apartment. The problem was getting it into my room. So my room faced the balcony. My room had the window faced the balcony. And I think the balcony was accessible through the living room. So what we had to do, once we got the ship into the apartment, we had to take the ship out into the balcony. I had to open up my window, and then we had to kind of narrowly put the thing, get it, we had to tilt it this way and kind of squeeze it into the window there. It's like putting a bikini on an elephant, actually.
That's funny.
Yeah. So
the Titanic, though, that didn't come apart, did it?
No, it didn't. It was 10 feet long, and it was still pretty easy to move around, but
I remember I had a van. I think I helped you deliver this once or twice.
Yeah, that's right.
Science and Industry, Museum of Science and Industry. I seem to remember bringing it down there.
I remember it was right near the Gemini and Apollo space modules. Yeah, I was like, my God, these things are world famous. These things were in space. They were part of the space race between the U.S. and Russia. And I thought, wow, it's like right next to them. The thing ended up in a bass player's house for a while. And my bass player's girlfriend said, this thing's got to be in the newspaper. So she called up the Chicago Tribune, and it got into the Chicago Tribune. That was the first time it got attention. There was a TV, as you know, there was a TV program on here called Wild Chicago, and it focused on local establishments that were kind of strange, local people and stuff like that. And I figured, well, I fit in that category there. So I sent them that Tribune article, and they picked up on it, and they sent a camera crew guy over there. Ships have changed, like since the sailing vessels. Now you got these, big well decks. They didn't have well decks back then. That.
Well decks? What is
yes.
well decks?
Oh, well deck is like the Titanic. The Titanic had a forward well deck, and it also had an after well deck. Forward well deck, it had all these cranes there, and it was just a deck that was lower than the rest of the ship. That's why they called it a well deck.
Oh, okay. Next, we're going to talk about the Lusitania, I think it is, right?
Yeah, that's it.
This fella. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. You get better at them after a while.
It's a big display too. It's a wonderful display, and you can't really tell, but the front half of it is just half of it, but then there's a little bit of a cut, and then there's the other half. How long is this one?
It is 16 feet long, and I think out of all my ships, this one has gotten probably the most publicity.
Why do you think that is? It's historic, of course.
It was in People magazine. It was on Rachel Ray. It was right now it's at the American Visionary Art Museum in Baltimore, and they get tons of photographers in there taking pictures of it all the time. It's actually on Antique Roadshow of all things. I remember kind of a funny story. I'm a big fan of the Antique Roadshow. So they were in Baltimore, and as they were doing the show there, they went to the local museums, and the American Visionary Art Museum just happened to be one of them. And they were talking to the head of the museum. So I was making, some dinner, and I ran in from my kitchen to my living room. And then they started panning around, the rooms and everything, looking at all the art. And no sooner did the thought enter my mind, like I was just thinking to myself, are they going to show my ship? They did. And there it was. It's just 2 seconds, a 2-second show. And I'm like, oh my God, my ship was on Antique Roadshow.
That's the biggest ship you've done, probably, right? 16 feet?
The biggest one I've done was the Queen Mary.
Aha.
Yeah, that's 25 feet. This one, I think, out of all the ships I've done, this one and also the SS United States are probably like the most accurate. They actually are pretty much to the scale and size of the real thing, and I think the Queen Mary is too. I got really good at sizing them up, and there's the Queen Mary. So that's the biggest one.
That's a nice one. That is big. So that other one was 16 feet.
Mm-hmm.
What is this, 18 or 20?
It's 25 feet. Is as big as Jaws. Jaws was 25 feet long. So just imagine a shark behind me, and that's how big the Jaws shark would be from Jaws.
That's amazing. And what is it? Only 3 stacks on the Queen Mary?
Yep, just 3 stacks. 1936. It was originally supposed to be launched in 33, but because of the Great Depression, I think Cunard, they went bankrupt temporarily, and then they were bailed out by the monarchy, and so they continued on building the ship, even though there wasn't any passengers who could afford it at the time to get on there.
Did they have bigger engines, so they only needed 3 engines?
I'm not too sure how many engines, but it was a lot more powerful because it is a much bigger ship. Titanic was like 900 feet long, and I think the Queen Mary is like over 1,000 and like 1,000.
Okay. Oh, so the smokestacks aren't like exhaust pipes for an engine. They could have many engines in there, and they just ported out various smokestacks. Okay.
Yeah, they're normally called funnels, because
Yes.
they do the work of a funnel. They just funnel all the smoke, whatever it is, and out above the decks of the ship, so no one on the deck would be. The reason why they're high is because people on the decks of the ship, they wouldn't smother, or get exhausted or anything on them.
Right. Let's see.
Yes,
well, this is pretty finished here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all finished there. That was taken by Jim Newberry.
These are some good detail shots of it.
Yeah.
All toothpicks. You had to do curving.
Yeah.
On the these are probably air shafts here.
Yes, they are. They're kind of like intakes, I think.
Right.
It was one of the last few ships to have them. So those big ventilators, they captured air and pumped it down into the lower portions of the ship. It was kind of like an air conditioning system.
The Queen Mary. There's the man at work.
Yeah, there's my glue, Type On. Well, that was Type On 2. The stuff I use now is Type On 3.
So this is a really nice detail here. So you fashioned that, the anchor out of toothpicks.
Yep.
There's the proud father. And this is all the Queen Mary. Yeah.
Yeah, Queen Mary. Yeah, I don't build them that big anymore. It took a long time.
All right. Now, here's an interesting boat called the Algonquin. And this is a smaller boat. And this is a recent...
Yes, I completed this in 2017. And I used to do a lot of shows out in Algonquin. They had a public arts program, and they used to have art everywhere at their village hall. So Algonquin is it used to be kind of like a rural farm town. And the guy that found it, he used to own a schooner. The city is named after the schooner, Algonquin. But there's also an Indian tribe called Algonquin. So I don't know what the true story is there, but but since I exhibited there many times, they asked me if I could, they commissioned me to build a model of the Algonquin. So they only had a picture of this thing. They didn't have an actual deck plans or anything like that. And they told me that it's sailed around Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes area probably during the mid 1800s, 1850s or something like that. So what I had to do, I had to go online, go to Google and just look up the deck plans of mid 18th or mid 19th century schooners and find one that looked just exactly like it. And I found two that looked pretty close to it. So I modeled the thing after it. And not only did I build a model of it, I also did a time-lapse construction video of it. The village of Algonquin in Illinois, they have a very nice little public arts program. And every time I built a ship, I sent them a submission, and they said, yeah, we'll take it. And the very first liner I had over there was the Queen Mary, and it got on Good Morning America with Harry Porterfield, of someone you should know.
Yeah, this is beautiful. I think these smaller ships are something. I would commission you to build something for me. I don't know. Cool. Can you mention how much you commissioned for? Maybe you shouldn't, because you should probably be getting like 5 times whatever they're paying you.
Yeah,
so let's just leave that private.
I'm still trying to figure. If it's something like a schooner or something like that, they're cheaper. But something like what I'm building for this guy out in Philadelphia, it's like a big ocean liner. There's a lot of work involved in it, but so it'd be more expensive. It depends what it is, how big they want it, and all that stuff. If it's like I said, if it's like a schooner or a clipper ship, there's not that much deck stuff to do on the decks. In the Algonquin here, you'll see that there's 2 main deck structures. That's the one in front of the wheel, and then those little boxes, and then you have all the bits on the side. So that really doesn't take that much time. You just build them independently, paint them, and then glue them on there. But if it's like a big if it's like an ocean liner, even though it might be 3 feet long, 2 or 3 feet long, there's a lot involved. You have to build these small little crevices, and it can take like a lot of time. And this ocean liner I'm working on now, it's got 5 decks on it. Here, the Algonquin's got only 1 deck. and that's all you have to do. So it doesn't take so much time. The sails, those were made from linen. So I just went to a Target and I just bought some linen pillowcases, and they ended up as sails. So Algonquin, its sails are down. And I remember I got it over there like 5 a.m. and the sails are down. And I had it in the back of my car, and I had it all secure in pillows and everything like that so it wouldn't bounce around. So I very gingerly took it out, and all of a sudden there was a wind gust. And I felt the wind kind of like moving, pressing it against the car. So I waited for the wind, and then I put it back into the back seat of the car, moved the car closer to the building, and then someone came out and they helped me. He kind of like blocked the wind for me, and we were actually able to get into the building without any problems. But those sails, they can they do their thing. They power the ship, and they can also take one of those little toothpick things I built and just totally blow it out the door.
Well, it's funny. I do remember when we moved the Titanic, it wasn't that it was heavy. It was bulky. How much did the Titanic weigh? I mean, 75 pounds?
No, I don't think that much. I probably weigh like 20 or 30 or something like that. 75,000 toothpicks.
And a bunch of glue.
Yeah, about a gallon of glue, less than a gallon, I think, if I remember correctly. And paint. Yeah, it was probably like 20 or 30 pounds. But like you said, you would never know because it's like so big,
Yeah. But this one probably weighs what, 10 pounds?
Not even that. I would say like about 3 or 4, less than 5 pounds.
I like the Algonquin. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the SS United States. This is another small ship that Wayne is doing. And it's currently, it's a work in progress now. Wayne, why don't you tell us about it?
Okay, well, as you can tell, it looks a little kludgy. That's because I'm so used to building bigger ocean liners. Whenever I paint these things, it's, the paint isn't perfect. So when I'm done with it, I have to take an X-Acto knife, sand everything down, make it look a little bit better. But
so this is a good example of a work in progress because you really do sand it down and finish it.
Exactly.
Because now it's just very raw.
It's very, very raw, yeah. And so here, I'm working on the bridge area. There's the skeleton of the ship. This is what it looked like a couple of months ago before I started building it out and building it up. And there's another one. That's what the ship looked like as a skeleton. And that's what it looks like pretty much now. So what I'm doing here, I'm going through all this stuff, putting up the decks and everything. And I'm taking like an X-Acto knife and I'm kind of like carving out those little holes in it because it was very difficult for me to build those little window structures. So once I'm done building the major part of the ship, I'm going to probably spend a couple of weeks going through all these little holes, exacting them, making them look equal in size, and then, kind of like touching them up a bit so they don't look so rough looking. And that way it looks exhibitable. When I paint it, it's kind of hard to paint, compared to the bigger ones because the paint kind of like wants to go anywhere it wants to go. So what I have to do is I have to sand out those little bumps and then it won't look so bumpy. But it looks like the red paint turned out pretty good. The white paint looks perfect, except it's just kludging up into the black. So there's still a lot of work to be done on it, but the big stuff's over with, and that's what you call the wheelhouse and the docking bridge.
Right.
So, yeah, that's kind of this ship is the SS United States. It's actually a successor of the SS America. The SS America is about 750 feet long, and the SS United States is about 1,000 feet long. It's almost as big as the Queen Mary, and in real life that is. And it's kind of weird building this thing because it is like building the SS America, except building it smaller.
It still looks big there for some reason, but I guess I'm used to seeing them big. But looking at that X-Acto knife line there is 7 inches long or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's about it's about 10 inches long or something like that. So it's not a foot, but It's
Yeah.
sharp.
I don't suppose you know how many X-Acto blades you've used in your endeavors for the last 30 years.
Oh God, lots of them. I think in that Lusitania, there's actually an X-Acto knife still inside of it. It fell in there, and I was never able to dislodge it. And once I started building, like I said, I build a hull first, finish the hull, then I started building the upper works, that is the white sections of the ship. And sometimes stuff falls in there, and X-Acto knife in that particular case fell in there, and I think a pin or two, and I was never able to get them out.
That's funny. You could have purposely put like some time capsule kind of elements inside them.
Yeah, and then someone had to like tear them out.
It'd be a shame. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. So you had the honor of going to Germany, I believe it was, for...
Yes. It had been a long time since I visited my friends in Europe. One of the reasons why I wanted to go to Bremen is because the ship museum is located in Bremenhaven, which is 30 minutes outside of Bremen. Bremenhaven is the German seaport. It's the main German seaport. And that's where, like, during the war, the Bismarck sailed out of there, all the U-boats. In fact, there's still U-boat bunkers over there. That's where all the rich people, they park their yachts, during the winter, they put them in the U-boat bunkers. There's perfect places, I needed to get a really good set of deck plans for the SS Bremen, which is my next ocean liner project. And I had a good set, but they were destroyed at my last exhibit. The people that helped me put up the exhibit, I used the deck plans to put on the walls to show people how I build from deck plans and all that, which was fun. But once the exhibit was over, they just tore them off the walls. And I'm like, well, what did you do that for? And so anyways, I figured this is a great opportunity to go over there and get some myself, just go over there. And so my friend, he called some media people up. They found one that was very interested in doing it. The bag that you see, that's got the ship in there. That's the ship that I had built over here. So that's the little mini SS Bremen that I had built here in Chicago in anticipation to bring it inside the museum, set it up, and complete the ship. And as you can tell, there it is. The museum people, they're very interested. So during there, they have a boom in front of me, and then they're asking me all these questions. Now, if you look around, you'll see some ships there. That's the ship museum I'm at. And this museum is 4 times the size of the Museum of Science and Industry. In other words, it is huge. If you've ever been to the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry, that is a big museum. Here, it's 4 times as big.
Wow.
Because nothing there but ships. And they have very accurate ships, too. So one of the reasons why I came was mostly to get the deck plans and the blueprints of the Bremen so I can take them back home with me, start working on the liner. But they also had an actual working model of the Bremen on site there. So I took my cell phone. I don't know why I didn't think of this, but I actually still have those pictures on my cell phone of pictures of the Bremen. Yeah, I mean, I actually took pictures of that model. Yeah, when you look them up in Wikipedia, some of those ships like the Bremen, there's actually more than one Bremen. There was like an 1785 Bremen, and then the one I built was a 1929 Bremen. I wanted to see more of the ship museum and the outside, and my original plan was actually to go see the wreck of the Bremen. Now, if you're familiar with World War II history, right before we got involved in the war, Germany decided to take all of its ocean liners and convert them into troop ships. And the Bremen, that's the ship I'm going to be working on, the ship right in front of you there, there was like a rebellion amongst the crew. The crew did not particularly want that ship being converted over to a troop ship because they thought it was going to be sunk. So, they decided upon themselves to set the ship on fire rather than let the German government take it over and make it into a war machine. So the ship kind of like lopped over on the dock, kind of like capsized. And then the German government, they or the Nazis, I should say, they went up to the ship and they just scrapped it down to the waterline. And then they towed what was left out to a portion of the river and dynamited it and sank it. It was to spite the people in that area that loved that ship. The people in that region of Germany, they loved their ships, and that was like an insult, slapping in the face to them, that they would take an ocean liner like that and just decide, oh, we're just going to make a troop ship out of it. And if it sinks and gets blown up, who cares, So they, that was their idea of retribution, which we're not going to let you have it. If we can't have it, you can't have it either. So we're going to sink it or set it on fire. So the wreckage is still there, and it's plainly marked. It in low tide, you can see more of it. In high tide, you can just see the upper parts of the hull. But I was planning to see if I can find someone who had a boat and just take it out there, kind of like the USS Arizona at Pearl Harbor, and just go out there and take pictures of it. It'd be great, But they kind of frown down on that, because it's not a site. It's something they're not exactly
right.
Yeah, it's not exactly proud of, It was something that's a dark part of their history, so they just leave it be and just something to remember. But all those postcards, those were actually given to me by people in Chicago. So in my last exhibit, which was at a big gallery in the western part of the city, I had the SS America on exhibit there, and I had announced to the media that my next ship was going to be the Bremen, the SS Bremen. Yeah, you got it. And if you look where it says Bremen painting and stuff like that, you'll see that those were actual postcards. And people who migrated from Germany to the United States, they came on that ship, and that's a picturesque picture of it, what it looked like in its heyday.
Here, I found this, so why don't you tell us the Prohibition thing? Tell us about the Prohibition.
Okay, so like I said, the Bremen and all these other European ships, even from England, they're very popular because once you get on board there, you can drink, and you can drink legally. So if you look at the sign there, it says no prohibition on Bremen. So that was taken in probably the 1930s. The Bremen was built in 1929, so that had to have been probably like 1930, 31 or something like that. But those guys, if you look at them, they got some pretty nice beer there, nice and dark with a good head. And I think that's a 1 liter glass. I wouldn't mind having one of them right now, actually. So anyways, another interesting story. I'm trying to find out a little bit more about it. There might be a little thing where Al Capone got his nose into this thing. So Al Capone liked to go down to the Caribbean, and he did a lot of gambling down there. And sometimes he would take an ocean liner down there with him. So I read somewhere that, and I only read it once on the internet and was never able to find it again. But it sounded like it made sense. It sounded like he took the Bremen down for a little wild goose chase, with gambling and lots of women and lots of brew, and took it down to like Jamaica, and kept it down there for a couple of weeks, and brought it back to New York, and kicked everybody off and said, okay, back to business as usual, and then it became an ocean liner again. And so I'm still trying to find out if that's true or not. Right. I think it might be, because he did it before, from what I understand. He put together like these big gambling things, like what you see in Las Vegas where people go to gamble. Well, he actually did that. Las Vegas on the water with ocean liners. But he did them off U.S. waters. So, so that's one of the reasons why he moved down to Florida, because Florida is pretty close to the Caribbean.
All right, cool. Well, that's good for the Bremen. What do we have here?
That is the SS America. So that is a 14-foot model of a 1939 U.S. ocean liner that was owned by the Teddy Roosevelt family. They owned the United States lines, and I think it's still the United States lines is still in business. If I believe, it might be under a different name. So I built that, as you could tell, in my apartment, and I just got on Facebook, and I was at that time when I was just showing updates on how far I gotten. So it's kind of like a work in progress there. As you could tell, I got one funnel built. The other funnel is right behind it. and I think that's the bridge.
And this shows it under construction and
Yep. Mm-hmm.
these cages that you did. Now, are these cages kind of universal? Would you just build bunches of these cages, then you could use them as you started to build the hulls for any of the ships?
Yeah, so they basically started out as a frame. I built a skeletal frame. So the cage effect that you see there with all the triangles, that's actually part of a very large frame in the shape of a ship. So most of my ships are built in two sections, so I can get in and out of my apartment or wherever I am, and then I just put them in a van. They're also you put them in a van pretty easily and not have to worry about them getting large vehicles involved and spending lots of money. But I would start out as a skeletal structure, and then I would clad it with toothpicks, and then the substructures that are built on top of it, such as the decking, the bulkheads, the smokestacks, I would build those structures independent of the hull. So that big smokestack that you see there, that's actually, I just placed it there just so just for the picture. But I was actually working on that, and I was actually building it up and adding more cladding to it, just like the one in front of it. That little red thing that you see right in front of it is another funnel that is two funnel. Yeah, it was a two funnel ship.
Yeah. That's the reverse angle before you built the other funnel, it looks like.
Right, correct, yes.
Right. And then this is even more detailed completed, right?
Yes, that was after completion. I took it to a place called the Black Couch, and that's a famous factory, or a Hammond. The Hammond organ factory used to be there in that building there. And I don't know what they did with it after, whether it went out of business or something, but that's where the factory used to be, and they made it into an art gallery, and that's where I featured my first showing of the SS America.
Fantastic.
After I completed it.
Is this in the gallery then, maybe?
No, it's actually to the right of me. It was supposed to go down to Florida, and one of the hurricanes took care of that. I had some interest for it to go down to California, and never heard back from them. It's still hanging. It's been hanging around here for a while. I haven't really spent a large amount of time trying to get it exhibited. I should get. I got all these other things going on, so I should get it. See if I can find an exhibit for it and get it back on the road again, or back in the water, whatever you want to call it.
How many, you've done a lot of shows then. There's been a lot of showings of these boats. Have they ever all been in one place at one time? That probably wasn't possible because it was this, you've done these for like 30 years, but.
Not all in one time. I would have like one or two at a show. Like I remember one time I had the Titanic and the Lusitania, both of them sunk, of course. I had them at one show for a while, maybe two or three actually. And I don't think I've had more than like three ships at a show. After a while they started, going all over the country, and I was just happy to have them out of the house, before this place got crazy around here. Looked like Pearl Harbor after a while if you got too many big ships in here. So, but I still got, like I said, the ship that you saw previous there, that's the SS America. So I'm gonna, maybe this podcast will motivate me to, start contacting museums and get this thing out of here for a while. But I think there's a museum in Nova Scotia that might be interested, but their email doesn't work. That was the last attempt I made. That was like about a month ago. So, but I didn't put too much more time into it.
So that's completed.
Yep, that is the completed version of it. So as you can tell, the funnels are all done. They're all like red, white, and blue. I removed all the furniture out of my living room, all the servers that I had in there. The only thing there is just me and my favorite guitar player, Jimi Hendrix.
Look at that.
Yep. All the toothpicks. So an interesting story you might be interested in hearing here. I got a donation of 1 million toothpicks in 1998, I think it was. And I was doing an exhibit at Navy Pier. And somebody from the Roddenberry School in Roselle, they saw me on TV as a teacher. And she contacted Channel 7, who did a story on me. They did a very short story on me when I was at Navy Pier. And she said, we got we got this mathematics project, which was supposed to be, collect 1,000,000 toothpicks and make a model of the Sears Tower out of it, but without taking the toothpicks out of the boxes. She talked to one of the administrators there, the principal. Let's give it to that guy. He needs these toothpicks more than we need. He's going out to all these grocery stores, and no one's got toothpicks in the neighborhood anymore because of him. So so we ended up something like 3,000 boxes of toothpicks. I try to get as many of the toothpicks as I could. I don't like wasting them. I just grabbed as many as I could, and I put them in the van. We got them home, and I still got 56,000 of those toothpicks left. That thing got me through 8 ships. That donation of toothpicks. Believe it or not.
Wow, that is amazing. Here's some of your tools at work.
Yes. I don't use anything really elaborate, just wire cutters to cut the ships and a household ruler. I might use a tape measure every once in a while. Screwdrivers, I use them to kind of like open up the cans of glue and everything. I use a drill for the portholes, and like I said, nothing, and an X-Acto knife and a box cutter. Those are the most, the most I use, but nothing elaborate like clamps. Well, wait a minute, no. I just recently started using paper clips. Those I don't really have anything in front of me. Little clamp clips, that you use to put around a big binding piece of paper.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the clamp ones. Yeah.
Yeah. I started using those. What a brilliant idea! 25 years later, I finally figured that one out.
But now, it's all toothpicks. Like, you'll slice the toothpicks for thin little pieces, but everything is the wood of toothpicks.
Yes, there are a few exceptions. The mouths are made of dowel rods.
Okay.
The portholes are made from wire. So what I do is I drill the porthole in with a drill bit. I take the drill bit out, take it out of the drill. I buy some wire at a hardware store, and I wrap the wire around the base of the drill bit where it goes into the drill. And it makes for like a slinky. If you remember what slinkies were way back in the day. So it's like a spring, and then you cut down the base of that spring, and it makes perfect little Cheerios the size of the drill bit that you drilled the portholes. So I just take those little Cheerios and paste them into the portholes, and then there's porthole covers. So yeah, it's really cool. And then I paint the porthole covers, copper, and it makes it look real.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of doing a ship out of Cheerios?
Yeah, no.
It'd be edible.
Yeah, and have a nice mouse problem.
Yeah, you'd have to float it on a bowl of milk.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So which boat is this?
That is the SS America again. It's a work in progress.
That shows a really good slice cross-section.
Yeah.
The infrastructure.
Yeah, as you can tell, it's made from a skeleton. So the skeleton looks just like those cages you were talking about earlier. And the hull is done first, and then everything above that black part is built separately. So after I'm done with the hull, I start building upward and, building all the white sections and all that stuff.
Wasn't that kind of how they would make a boat? They would build the whole hull first, and then they...
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's exactly. Except I build the hulls upside down, so that way the boat deck is absolutely flat. And once it's sturdy enough, I turn the skeleton upside right, and then I start working from the boat deck going upward, and that keeps it nice and straight.
You told me that you spend a lot of your time waiting for glue to dry, so maybe you work on 2 projects at a time, so it alternates.
Yes. So these things are so big. There's lots of parts of them to work on. So I might be working on the hull. I can work on the lifeboats separately. The lifeboats were built independently of the ship. So some of those portions at the top part of the picture there, they're also built independently. So I just glued them into place once I had them completed. And same thing with the smokestacks or the funnels. And I can build bunches of them or different parts of it at the same time. But yeah, waiting for the thing to dry can be a hassle.
How long does it take for it to dry? I mean, glue, white. It's Elmer's glue. It's white glue.
I use Type Bond 2, Type Bond 3, I should say,
okay.
And they're my sponsor. And it takes It depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing something where I can glue other things on top of it relatively fast, I think, I just need to let it sit for like 30 minutes. Then I can glue other things next to it. But if I need this thing like rock solid and I can't glue anything on top of it until I know this thing is sturdy, then I have to wait for like about 2 or 3 hours, and then I start applying more stuff to it. I tried to build a mast out of toothpicks. It warped on me. So I figured you got to have something in there that's really strong, that the toothpick can base itself on. And also the very keel of the ship is also like a piece of wood trim, something that you would put up on your ceiling, on the wall that, near the wall and the ceiling. So it's kind of a very thin piece of wood trim that makes sure that when you put the thing down, on a flat surface, it's not going to leave an impression of what you put it down on. It'll stay consistent and strong.
Right.
So I only use it because I have to. If there was a way to do it with toothpicks, I would. But I have to maintain the strength of it somehow.
All right, cool. All right, Wayne, this has been a lot of fun. I really want to thank you. This is Wayne Kusy. He is the Toothpick King, and I want to thank you very much for sharing your experience with us and these wonderful toothpick ships that you do. So say goodbye, Wayne.
Thank you, Mr. Barney. Goodbye, everybody.
All right. Thanks a lot, Wayne. I really appreciate it. I've known Wayne for a long time, and I've been trying to get him on the show for a while, but he's busy making toothpick ships all the time. And so that's it for now, and we will see you next time. I'm waiting for you. I got nothing to do while I'm waiting.